Hey! everybody. Welcome to another episode of Girl Talk Sunday. I am your host, Sandy Best Life Jones, and I am here to help every woman around the world give birth to the purpose and plan for their life through honoring God, honoring their body, and owning their worth. Yes, we are a faith-based platform, but all who come in peace are welcome. If you are joining us for the first time, I'm so happy to see you. And if you've been here before and you came back for more, welcome back. Listen, my guests tonight are doing work in their community that I admire, I applaud, I appreciate. I understand how important this work is, which is why I'm highlighting their nonprofit on the show tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about why I'm so connected to the work that they do. If you have been watching my Facebook posts, you probably saw that I was once in the foster care system. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, and then we're going to talk about how they are helping to ensure that foster children in this community are treated with dignity and respect and made to feel safe where they are with James Matthew Commission. We're going to hear more about that in just a few minutes. But before we get started, I want to see some comments in the chat. Let me know that you are here. Hi, Kia. Yes, I'm going to talk just a little bit about that. I don't talk about it very much, but it is very much a part of my story. And if talking about it tonight can help someone, then I'm okay with doing that. So I'll be sharing a little bit about my own story. But I'm so glad to see you. Hi, birthday twin. Lena is my birthday twin. We got a birthday in not this coming week, but next week on the 26th of April. I'll be the double nickel, y'all. Turning 55. I feel good too. I feel 25. I really do. I feel good. I feel better than I felt in a really long time. Yes, it's our month. Yes. Well, before I bring my guests out, I want you guys to put some hearts in the chat. Put some smiley faces in the chat. Make them feel welcome. Give them some warm applause before I bring them out. They are so dear to me. I've been friends with Lady Tralayne for a really long time. I don't know Pastor Alex quite as well, but I'm sure that I will have a chance to get to know him. And I just love genuine people. I love real people. People that are themselves no matter where they see you. You could be at church, you could be in the cereal aisle at Safeway, it don't matter. They always gonna be themselves. I love people like that. And I believe that Pastor Alex and Lady Tralayne are those kind of people. And I think that's why I connect with them so easily. So without further ado, I want to introduce to some and present to others, Pastor Alex and First Lady Tralayne Davis.
Hello. Hey sis, how are you?
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome to the Girl Talk Sunday. They're showing you love in the chat.
Thank you for the love.
I'm so excited and delighted to have you here because Lady Tralayne, when we did our pre-interview,
yes,
we had a really great conversation because
awesome.
You are an absolutely phenomenal conversationalist.
We had a great conversation. I'm like, you have to come to our church and talk to women because
I would be happy.
It's good sense.
Yes, I would be happy to come to your church. And within that conversation that we had, I started to think about my own story and my own experience as a foster child many years ago. I think I was 15 when I was thrust into the foster care system. I was a teen runaway and I just refused to go to school. My parents just didn't know what to do with me because I would do the opposite of what they told me to do. So I remember there was a time when I was supposed to be standing at the bus stop waiting to get on the school bus. And my mother, I thought she had left to go to work, but she had caught on to me by then. Because as soon as she left, I left the school bus stop and went to the city bus stop because I was going to skip school and go to the mall. And so I'm on the bus, on the city bus, in the back of the bus. I'll never forget it. I looked out the back window of the bus and my mother was in the car behind the bus. Looking at me, and she was like, I don't know what she was saying, but she was not happy. And I just got off restriction for that. Like, I was in deep trouble. But I was having some issues. I had some behavioral issues. I had some emotional issues. And my mother didn't know what to do with me. And I kept running away. I wanted to be with my boyfriend at the time, who turned out to be my husband, who's now my former husband. And I just had a lot of problems. And my mother, she just threw up her hands and she said, you know what? I don't know what to do with you. You won't stay at home. You keep running away. And so she and my siblings and my stepfather was in the military at the time. He got stationed over in Belgium. And I just flat out refused to go.
Okay.
That's just what it was. I told my mother, I'm not going. And she said, okay, I'm going to leave you here with your biological father and he can deal with you.
Wow.
I'm tired and I got 3 other children that I have to raise. And if you don't want to obey and you don't want to listen and obey the rules of the house, then you can't live here. Yeah. So I went to live with my biological father. But of course, I did the same thing with him. I kept running away. I kept skipping school. And he didn't have as much tolerance as my mother.
Okay.
Because his wife was like, look, you either going to obey the rules or you got to go. So I ended up a ward of the state.
Wow.
And that's how I entered the foster care system. And I was in foster care. I went to a receiving home first. And I was at the receiving home for about 3 months.
Okay.
Before I got placed in a foster home with a lady who had 10 or 11 cats. And at the time, I didn't know I'm allergic to cats, but I found out very quickly because the cats had free reign of the house.
Right.
So they would be in my bed. They'd be in my closet. I'd be trying to sleep and I would feel paws on my head.
Oh, no.
And one morning I woke up and my eyes were swollen shut. I could just barely breathe. And she had to rush me to the emergency room. And that's when I found out that I'm deathly allergic to cats. Did they remove me from her home? No. They still left me there in her home, knowing that I almost died from all her cats.
Good Lord.
And so I think I was maybe 16 by then. And I stayed in that foster home for about 7 or 8 months. And then I was given a guardian ad litem.
Okay.
And the guardian ad litem asked me, do you want us to petition the court to emancipate you? And I didn't know what that meant. So she explained what that meant. She said, you would basically be an adult if the court agrees to emancipate you. You'd be an adult at 16. And then you can just go do whatever you want to do. I was like, yeah, let's do that.
Sounds good.
So she petitioned the court on my behalf. And the court emancipated me. It took about 6 months.
Wow.
I was emancipated at 16 and I was an adult and I was allowed to live wherever I wanted to live. And so that was my experience. And I was thinking about, after we talked, how I felt, because I haven't thought about how I felt in that season of my life in a long time. After our conversation, I thought about it. And the primary feeling I had was that I am at the mercy of these people that I don't know. Praise be to God, I wasn't abused.
Right.
I wasn't treated, in a mean way or in an abusive way. But I was very clear that these people have control of my life right now. My mother isn't even in the country.
Wow.
So I just felt like I was at the mercy of these strangers. And I felt helpless. And it was a very odd feeling. I did not have not any of my belongings. So I had to borrow clothes from the receiving home when I got there. And that was weird, wearing other people's clothes.
Right.
Weird. So
Right.
that made me feel some kind of way. And then I had to share a room with someone that I didn't know. And these other girls were acting out and fighting all the time. And I just stayed in my little corner of the house and tried to stay out of the way because I was
Mhm.
not for the smoke. I did not get down like that.
Right.
I wasn't that kind of kid. I was just being disobedient. I wasn't out here beating people up.
Right.
So I stayed out the way. And that was the receiving home. And then when I got to the foster home, my foster mother made it very clear to me that my mother did not want me.
Mm.
And that's why I ended up at her house. And she said, you should be thankful that I even have you here because your mama didn't want you. I
Wow.
remember her saying that to me. And then she would
Yeah.
have her friends come over and they would be sitting at the kitchen table talking about me. And I'd be in the room and I could hear everything they said. And so I thought about that as I was doing my research on James Matthew Commission. And
Mhm.
the first thing that stood out to me is on your website. And I'm going to put it down here so people can see it because when I saw that, I was like, okay, they're doing it right. They are doing it right. And this is what I saw on your website. And it just made me think about how I felt when I was in foster care. And you said children deserve a trusted adult.
Mhm.
I'm going to say that again. Children deserve a trusted adult.
Mhm.
So before we get into that, though, I'm going to come back to that. Before we get into that, I want to ask both of you the same question that I ask all of my guests when they come on the show. Tell me who you are, tell me what you do, and tell me why you do it. And we're going to start with First Lady Tralayne.
Okay. So, my name is Tralayne, and born and raised Tacoma. This is home. This is where I've lived all my life. A lot of community in the sense of the church was my community. The church was my village.
Mm-hmm.
And who I am, I'm just really passionate about fulfilling the purpose that God has given me, specifically as it pertains to these children in foster care, because um, I was blessed where I, had parents who kept me safe,
Mm-hmm.
and they put me around safe people.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me, confident. That made me have a good self-esteem, and that gave me opportunity to know how to, critically think about different things that, how to solve things. And of course, the church was our root, and, God was everything to my parents. And that's what they portrayed to us as children. So who I am is, I've always deemed myself as a confident person. And I think I never wanted to be like too different. I don't like to follow the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely more of a leader type person,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't never want to be too different, but I was okay with being different.
Mm-hmm.
So a safe different, if you will.
You don't want
So
to go too far to the left.
yeah, not too far, because then it gets strange and weird, and then people are like, I don't understand what's going on with her. And so, but I was okay with having my own mind, because that's what my parents taught us, to be independent thinkers. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
believe in peer pressure. What was that?
Right.
So even now, and you would think now at 52, there's still people that are influenced. They don't know who they are. So I am clear on who I am. I'm clear about any flaws. I'm clear about what God has me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm not, a lot of times I'm not clear on on the how,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly the purpose and things like that. So I like to think that I'm also, outside of James Matthew Commission, even the church, I really try to motivate people, and try to motivate them to do their best, and be their best, however part I can do to help in that, I try to do that. I know some people, because can be very direct in truth and love.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like that response, but I can't I can make it sweeter, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't sugarcoat it, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
Sugarcoating sometimes can taint what the message is really supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think I'm definitely a woman of integrity. And I love God. I love his people. I love my family. And that's who I am. And so it was also why we do what we do. Was that
Yes.
what you asked us?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When we started James Matthew Commission, I didn't understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, especially as I got to learn this year, there's our 5th year where our
Woo!
girls' house has been
Yay!
5 years. Yay! And
All right.
we've done a lot in these 5 years, maybe a little too much sometimes, but
Pastor said no. Mm-mm.
yeah, Alex, he always does that. Why I do what I do is because I truly believe that children deserve trusted adults.
Yeah.
I had trusted adults. I surrounded my daughter. I was a single parent until he and I got married when she was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I put trusted adults around her so that she can grow up. Because sometimes mom doesn't have all the answers. Sometimes dad doesn't have all the answers. But if you can find that adult that you can trust, who's going to have your best interest, not be your friend per se, but just be the authority, an authoritative figure, yet a sounding board, that was very important to me growing up. So my purpose is just to show these kids that they have what has happened to them doesn't have to be what continues, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That there are people that are going to love you and not harm you, and that you can trust them. And that's my purpose, is to keep them safe. Create safe places for them with safe people around them, so they can have healthy attachments, right? We're raising adults at the end of the day. Even in our bio children. And when I got married to Alex, I bonus 2 kids, and we're raising adults. So I want our children in foster care to know that they have a good high self-esteem, have confidence, so they can be confident adults, and trust themselves with their decisions and things of that nature. And of course, that's all wrapped into, the God's love. We're not always preaching God, but we're definitely demonstrating it in what we do. So
I heard somebody say, that's a good point you made. And I heard somebody say once that it's easier to help heal a broken child than to try to fix a broken adult.
I would agree with that.
Get them in their children and get them the help that they need so they can begin to heal from the trauma that they've been through. And you're less likely to have to try and help this broken adult who's been this way for a much longer time. It would be harder to try to get that adult the help that they need, because sometimes we get so familiar and comfortable in our trauma that it's just normal to us.
It's just what we like. This piece is what we wear.
We don't know that we don't even know it's trauma.
Right.
I think this is the way my life turned out.
It becomes a part of identity. This is, I was the woman who has, or I was this, and it becomes a part of our identity versus it being an experience that you said earlier, this was a part of my story, and so instead of it becoming a part of the story, it becomes a part of identity. And that's where we mess up, because we, especially in this platform, where we want you to see what God sees in you, not what you're currently seeing, because we all may have had times when we were broke, didn't have any money, but that doesn't mean I'm broke, So you have to see yourself. You have to see yourself bigger. And so that's really what we're doing. We're trying to just plant those seeds of hope. There's a lot of kids that they don't have hope. But if an adult can plant the seed and just say, I believe in you, I'm listening to you, and it makes a world difference. It definitely does.
I agree. Pastor Alex.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
I'm Alex Davis, born and raised in Tacoma, Washington, all my life. Let's see. I am the 5th child of 6. So I'm second to the youngest. So that's who I am. What I do a lot of stuff. Primarily a pastor. Eastside Assembly of Believers, which we celebrate 59 years this year.
Woo! Wait, that's a long time.
Yeah, my dad started the church August 24th, 1964.
Wow.
And I took over, been pastor now like 10 years. So it's been a journey. I'm also entrepreneur. I'm partial owner with my wife Tralayne of James Matthew Commission. Also have a couple businesses. I do some work with entrepreneurs in the place of, we had a coffee shop called North Lights Coffee.
I remember.
Different work with North Lights. So I've done small investments. I've done just some trainings. And I continue to do that. North Lights Coffee will come back here in a few years.
Oh, nice.
So I also have a company or organization called I Challenge Life. It's how I inspire people through a self-publisher book, 40 Days of Focus, and also do a workshop called I Focus Me, teaching people how to focus themselves so that they can grow in business or just personally. And then we also have I Challenge Life gear. And then I also, oh
my goodness.
I also am the owner operator of Jed's Big Slice Pizza. We're a pizza truck. And what we do with the pizza truck is not just to generate money, but we generate funds so that we can give back to youth mentorship and also kids in foster care.
You say you're the owner. You don't.
Owner operator through the church. I say it that way.
The church is invested in it too. That's why I said that. So
the church owns it too. So thank you. I don't want anybody to get offended.
Yeah, like we've been running this church, they call themselves the owner.
Oh Lord.
I don't want no church folks to get offended.
The church definitely benefits
from it. Benefit, yeah. So we do that, which I'm super excited about the pizza truck, because we have been able to allow some of the foster kids to work on the pizza truck and get job training. As well as this coming next month, we're doing a big fundraiser for James Matthew Commission to help just move their vision forward. And so that's what I do. I operate in the community. I sit on a couple community boards, anywhere from Palmer Scholars to the Franklin Pierce School District, as well as I'm a board member of Progress House, and then of course the East Side Board. And so stay very involved in the community with just different organizations. But the core of who I am, my purpose in life, is to heal and feed the human spirit. And so if it ain't about healing and feeding the human spirit, I'm not with it. And I'm also a developer. I'm a community developer, naturally and spiritually. So I spend a lot of my time developing people, developing projects. I believe in economic development. I'm also a part of the Tacoma Minister Alliance, where I'm the executive.
When do you sleep?
I don't. I'm the executive director for their economic development department. So where we're going to be dealing with Mr. Mack's store and also Sam and Terry's and getting them to where they're supposed to be. So, and again, I love investing in community and entrepreneurship. So that is the gist of my life, just to invest and develop and heal. Yeah.
I like what you said. You said your purpose is to heal
and feed the human spirit.
Heal and feed the human spirit. I like that. I love it when a person has their own purpose statement for their life. It's really important to narrow down what it is God created you to be, so you're not all over the place. You are clear on why you are here, clear on your mission. God has presented it to you. He has the plan. You work the plan, you fulfill your purpose, and you're clear on why you do it and what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
I love it.
And I add this last thing. One of my the most thing I love to work at, and I don't call it a job, but I call it work, because whatever you work at, you become. I love being a family man. That is my heart. I love my wife. I love my children. And that is the biggest thing for me, is family. We have a village model. So my nieces, my nephews, my godchildren and all that, we're all a part of a village, and we take care of each other. So that's the biggest joy for me.
Well, that is the perfect segue, because I told Lady Tralayne, anytime I have a married couple on my show, I love to hear their love story. So Pastor Alex.
Yeah, so our love story.
Here's a love story.
Yeah, so I guess the love story is it was definitely church.
Mm-hmm.
So Tralayne had came over to Eastside years ago to help Pastor Davis with our music department.
Mm-hmm.
But really, his brother, the late Superintendent Sherman Davis, which were their actual brothers, and they had a conversation about Tralayne. And during that time, and I'll let her go into that part later, but she was in a place of being a single mom and things like that, and just really needed to be healed. And one thing I appreciate about Superintendent Sherman Davis, he understood his capacity enough to know that she's not going to thrive in this environment anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so they set up a plan to send her over East Side to help the music department. So she did and was going between both. And then she ended up falling in love with Pastor, she would say Alfred, and his name's Alfred, but Alfred Davis. And she joined.
He knew I was talking about him.
And, Ariana was 6 months old. And so Tralayne and I used to be the keyboard player for the church. So we were working together in ministry and doing leadership together, youth department, all those type of things together for 16 years. And then I was previously married, and then got divorced, and I was a single dad and raising my kids. And
you have two children, right?
Yes, ma'am. So I have a son and a daughter.
Okay.
And my son, he's not my biological son, but I've been raising him since he was 6 months old. So he's mine. So that's right there.
Yeah.
So Tralayne, I would say one of the things that caught me with Tralayne was when I was going through my divorce, I really didn't trust women. I just did not. And because my divorce didn't have anything to do with infidelity, it just had to do with trust issues. And because there was trust issues, I made the decision to end the marriage, and it was brand new. And so, in the church, especially the good old grand Church of God in Christ, you don't do that unless there's abuse and all that. Sometimes they tell you to stick through that.
Right.
But I also knew I was being taken out of who I was, and I felt it was best. It did not help that my ex-wife was pregnant at the time, so it made it worse. So I had a lot of women mad at me and all that. And honestly, the only person I could really trust who would just give me sound advice was Tralayne. And this is no knock, but my mom was mad at me as well too. She was supportive, but there was some parts she was just not happy with me about, and I can get that. So I would talk to Tralayne a lot. And then later on, all that, me and my ex-wife reconciled and just became friends and good co-parents. And so we're friends to this day. And then I had started taking over the church for my dad, which I had no intention of doing. I thought I was going to support a pastor. I never wanted to be a pastor. I just wanted to support a pastor. And my dad started pushing me. And so one Sunday I'm up, we're exhorting God, and I'm prophesying in the church, and we're at the end, and then God says, go tell Tralayne to go in the back office that you need to talk to her. And so I automatically say, God, about what? And he would not tell me. And I was like, about what? Like, I'm about what? And he would not tell me. And I promise you, sis, it's like he snatched the breath out of my body. I was like, I'm not playing with you. So I was like, Tralayne, can I talk to you in the back? And so I took her in the back office, and I said, it looks like Dad's going to turn the church over to me, which I'm still just kind of in awe. But if he does, would you support me? Because I knew Tralayne believed in a pastor who is solid. She don't deal with no young pastor, especially one that's single, and you young pastors need to be married, and y'all need to be solid. So I was like, she's gonna leave. As soon as Dad's done, she's going up to Seattle, and she's gonna join Tabernacle or something.
That was my church. I was like,
she's gonna join Tabernacle. And so she said, I see your life is getting better with God, and that you're really saved. And she's like, I'll support you. And I was like, praise God.
I can hear her saying that too.
Yeah. And then the last thing was I said, and by the way, I'm interested in you. And she was like,
what?
And she stopped. And for the first time ever in my life of knowing Tralayne, she had no words. She had no words. And so from there, she went home, told her mom, was like, Mom, guess who said they're interested in me? Alex Davis, Alex, and I love Mom Myers, and she was like, bro, I always looked at him like a brother and stuff. She said, let me help you out real baby. I ain't had no Alex Davis.
It's not your brother.
Not your brother. And so from there, we just started talking and dated. She knew I was serious, that I wasn't looking for no girlfriend, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the things about me was I never thought I'd be with a church girl, because I just wasn't. Before I really got saved, I wasn't in that type of life anyways.
Mhm.
So I was just like, no, that's not gonna fit me, and I don't need all that holiness. And then you can't even have a real relationship because God's in the way. I don't just cool off of that. But with Tralayne, it was different. And so what made our relationship so strong was we was already friends. Like, we trusted each other already. We knew how each other operated. So when I did propose, one thing is her dad would not say anything. When I went to get his blessings, he would not say anything.
That's when we first started dating.
Well, when we started dating, but then even when I went to ask for her hand in marriage and stuff, he wouldn't say anything. That's what I just said.
I didn't know that.
So then,
I knew it was before we started dating.
So then he said, "I want to talk to you." So he pulled me to the side and talked to me, and he said, "Alex, God will take a heart of stone and turn to a heart of flesh." I did not understand that at the moment. And the second part of it was, he said, Tralayne needs a man who allows her to be herself. I didn't, and
that's her dad telling you that.
That's her dad telling me, and I didn't. And I was like, okay, but I was like, okay, I need to get some stuff straight. I'm, hard because of whatever happened to me, which is a whole nother subject, which I won't go into. But in my earlier life, I have been abused by women. Anywhere from being groomed to even being sexually abused by a woman. So I already had something. I was very careful with women.
Right. And that's where the trust issue came from.
Yes.
Okay.
Huge one, because the person who groomed me for about 9 years old, all the way till I was about 21. So I really had trust issues. And so when he said that, I understood, but I didn't understand. And then when we got married, I understood more what he was saying. It was going to take a soft heart to love her the way she needed to be loved, and that she could still trust you, and you allow her to be everything she is. And so what I start understanding is, it goes deeper than love. It goes deep into obedience of your assignment. When God has assigned you to a person, that love is a tool that is used. But even when things don't go right or whatever, your assignment is to, just like he sent God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. He sent his son on assignment. And so for me, it's like, as much as I love Tralayne and all those things, she's also my assignment. Right. So no matter what we go through in life, she's always going to be protected, provided, and loved by me.
Right.
And so
wow,
that is our story. She is a
what?
Oh, what is that?
What's that mean?
She's a cougar. I'm younger. So I'm a young guy. We are 9 years.
You're not that. You act like you just like super young. You over 40 now, but you're middle aged.
I'm in my 40s and she's not in her 40s. So I just want to let you know that. But I say that for this, that it doesn't matter. But when God gives you somebody, it just does not matter. And so that's our story. We continue to rock together. We understand each other very well, and I just let her be her. That is my job, to make sure she's her. And that's how even James Matthew came about, because she was working a corporate job. And I was in negotiations with the person when it came to foster care, that there was this big need. We need somebody to do this work. We need somebody to do this work. And God put you on my heart. And so there was a couple people I was presenting, and the person kept saying no. And then I said, what about Tralayne? And that person said yes. And that's really how James Matthew started. And we started, and I'll let her tell the rest, that part of the story, but also that was a part of me loving her and making and fulfilling my assignment to pull out of her what God had put in her. So when she hit the ground running, she took off. And so even my position in James Matthew is to just provide support. That is my job. I am not to run it. I'm not. When she needs help, I help her. When she needs finances, I'll go find however much money she needs. I'll put any resource she needs. This she need to move. She need this, and she need me to run errands. I'll run errands. If I need to go pick up kids, whatever it is she needs. But it is her business, and I'm there to just support her. And in all honesty, I really see even the future of JMC with her daughter. Our daughter,
Mhm.
Ariana being a person who takes over for her. And so
Mhm.
that is our love story. And we both have a love for children. And I will share this last part.
Mhm.
Uh, Ariana, her daughter, I have so much of love for her. I have my own daughter, but when
Mhm.
I was young, I made a mistake, me and a young lady, and she
Mhm.
ended up having an abortion. And
Mhm.
that left a hole in my heart because I played such a huge part of that. And
Right.
so she was so far along that we knew it was a girl. And
Mhm.
so, and that long story, but at the same time, when Tralayne and I got together, Ari, a couple years in, gave me a cup that says, "I'm glad you're my dad."
Oh.
God flashed before my eyes. Ari was born the same month my daughter would have been born.
Wow. I'm
So
telling you, God wastes
here,
nothing.
so when I messed up,
He
He
wastes
forgave me.
nothing.
Then, Mhm. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I love that, Pastor Alex. I love the way you articulated that. You were very clear about what it was you were looking for. You heard the voice of God. You obeyed the voice of God. And even though you weren't sure how things were going to go,
Yes, ma'am.
you just knew this was the woman that God presented to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Lady Tralayne, when he told you that he was interested in you, what was your first thought? Because I'm not even going to say it. What was your first thought?
I was like, because because I had known him for a long time, and I knew that he was a good guy and he had a good
Yeah.
personality and all that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
I literally just looked him as more of a brother type versus this, husband type, whatever.
Mhm.
So I was, and then there's the other part of me that was like, I don't want to be a pastor's wife
Mm.
because I knew that's where he was going.
Mhm.
One, that he was going to want a wife, and that his dad had started letting him do more pastoral kind of duties. And at that time, his health was declining and stuff. So, and he had already told us, Pastor Alfred had already told us, the leadership, that if something were to happen to me, you all have Alex. And he
Mhm.
had said that before he officially started giving pastoral duties to
Mhm.
Alex.
Mhm.
And so I was like, I don't want to be no pastor's wife. Yeah, this is too much. And he has 2 kids. My child is a teenager.
And he had he
You
had
know,
younger
his
children.
daughter was, how was breathing?
2,
2. She was 2.
Oh, he had babies.
Oh,
baby.
Yeah.
yeah.
Son
And
was 6.
the son was with the mom more
Yeah.
so at that time.
Mhm.
But this daughter was like, and I said, "Oh Lord, this is changing my world, Jesus. I did not expect this." So that was my reaction, like, what? But I've always known him to be a very good man.
Mhm.
Always been a very good man of integrity, and he's the one that always he supports everyone,
Mhm.
and he's always just kind of been that one. He really wants people to do well in their lives. So yeah, it took me a minute to get used to. But
I think it's interesting that Pastor said he didn't want to be a pastor. You didn't want to be a pastor's wife.
who
And yet
wants
here you are 9 years later almost.
and God is blessed. I mean, that's
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
I enjoy the role that I play and
Mhm.
I accept it more so now. And I when I was talking earlier about being different and not being,
Mhm.
but not too different, but
Mhm.
there's a lot that someone actually interesting today, just today, this morning, a newer member, she asked me, do I call you first lady,
Mhm.
or what do I call you? And I said, Tralayne,
Mm.
because I just don't get caught up in all of that.
Yeah.
And some people, they revel off of it, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But I think that has a lot to do with, I kind of had a good idea of who I was beforehand. So
Yeah.
the title does not make me, but it's definitely my responsibility. I understand I do have a responsibility to the church
Mhm.
as the pastor's wife
Yeah.
to, in our case,
Mhm.
not that it always is that case, is to lead the women as best as I can.
Mhm.
And I do love the women and the men and the children at our church. I do love our church and the people who are part of the East Side family. And so, no, it's not anything you want. I feel like that. But it's something that in wisdom, when I have to kind of play that card,
Mhm.
in this to kind of help motivate people, then it is what it is, because sometimes people will though a lot of times people respect me because I am.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but I don't abuse that.
Right.
I don't take advantage of that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
talked about this in the pre-interview. And by the way, you always tell me to just call you Tralayne, and I always call you
Yes.
Lady Tralayne because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I like to give honor to whom honor is due, and so I call you Lady Tralayne.
I appreciate that.
But when we talked in the pre-interview, I said to you, you you have the temperament for to be a first lady,
I
because a
appreciate
first lady is a woman of influence,
that. Mm-hmm.
but she's mature enough to handle that influence in a way that helps to build the women, the people, but more specifically the women in
Mm-hmm.
the church. She's not
Mm-hmm.
walking around wielding a big stick, knocking people in the head to get them to
Mm-mm.
respect her, because respect is earned.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Make people respect you. But if you are mature in the way you handle the influence that you have as a first lady, you can bring the best out of the women
And
in
that's
your
really
church.
what I that's really my goal. If
And
I
I believe that's what you do.
I
Okay.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I that's why I really appreciate him. My dad, one thing about my dad, and you knew my dad very well. He would say it a lot. He would say a lot. I have a younger sister,
Mhm.
and our husbands are very similar, which is interesting. They're kind of similar in some personality traits. Um, and he would tell them things that he didn't necessarily tell us,
Mhm.
but it was things about us that he
Mhm.
knew, like him saying, she needs somebody who's going to let her be herself.
Mhm.
And that's what Alex has allowed me to do in just even in pastoring, not only in our home life,
Mhm.
you know, and not only in business, but even in the church. I do have a voice, and I ask God to give me wisdom on that, because at the end of the day, He is the one who
Yeah.
God has appointed as the pastor. But it really is a partnership. It's not 50-50, but just
Mhm.
we work together, and I do have a voice, and He's listening to what God is saying through me. And that's what I do love and appreciate about Him, because He Himself brings out the best in me.
Yeah.
I would have never been an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
My family, my mother and father, they were just kind of, traditional Southern people, go to school, get your degree, get a job, and take care of your family. Whereas his parents were entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And so that just wasn't anything that I didn't think I was interested in, but apparently it was in me. And
Mhm.
so I think that's the good thing about when you meet somebody that God has put together.
Yeah.
You really can bring out the best of each other, and
Yeah.
the things that it's like God says, okay, you've had this in you all this time, but now boom, at 43, He's gonna bring that out of you and snatch it
Yeah.
out. So that's
Because
what I
they
appreciate.
add to the goals and dreams and aspirations that you already have. You should
Right.
already
And sometimes
have
you don't even know
it.
you have that.
Yeah, but you should have an idea of
Yeah,
the
you may have an
goals and your dreams
idea.
before they come. Before
Hmm.
they get to you, you should already be working on something.
Right. And
Build
so, but he
that
was
build
talking,
you
I
for life.
was in government, I was
Yeah.
in government for a long time, and
Yeah.
had corporate jobs and things like
Mhm.
that. And so, but when he talked about this fostering, it just sparked it's like a pilot light was on and God just blew on it. And so that just ignited something in me.
Yeah.
And that again, that was already there. And so, like
Mhm.
you said, God he'll just blow that up. And so what I really try to do
Mhm.
with the women of God, our church, and even the men, because
Mhm.
I'm at that age,
Mhm.
where I feel 35, but I am what I am at. And I ask God for the wisdom, like you were saying, how you feel 25.
Mhm.
But I ask God for wisdom, because there are a lot of people who are in the church or even outside the church who were not raised with godly parents, or have parents who are currently godly. And I
Mhm.
find myself being a spiritual mother to sons and to men and women,
Mhm.
and trying to bring out what God is showing me in
Mhm.
them, and
Mhm.
try to be that one that fans the flame,
Yeah.
the vessel that God uses to fan the flame. And sometimes that doesn't always jive with what first ladies are supposed to do. Like, even, you've been raised in the church,
Mhm. Mhm.
us praying for a man, they didn't want us to pray for it. I didn't see that. A woman actually laying hands on a man. But
Right.
if that's what God has told me to do, and then the love of God he has in him, and God led in him, it is what it is, and God has blessed because of that obedience.
Right.
So I don't always. I've accepted the role of being a pastor's wife, but I'm doing it the way God is leading me to do it. I just so happen to be a pastor's wife.
All right. I love that love story. I love it. Now let's talk about JMC.
Yes.
So
Baby.
Pastor Alex talked a little bit about how JMC came to be, but talk to me about why foster children? Why was it foster children?
I think again because my experience, even with people that I grew up, you have Jay and Cornelia on here, and I was raised up with Jay. He's my actual godbrother, and then of course he meets Cornelia, they're just amazing couple. They've been together forever, and that's what the people around me looked like. You know, they were 2-parent home. We were all in church, and, we spent time together outside of church, things like that. So if the idea of anyone, and I'm not saying that people didn't have issues in church, they didn't talk about it as much as they do now. The platform wasn't as welcoming or safe as it is now. Things that maybe we knew that was a little off. We just didn't have it wasn't the platform. The environment wasn't one that said, let's talk about what's going on with, Johnny over here or Sandy over here, things like that. That wasn't really talked about. So my environment was such that my environment was such that that's the people that I was around were like me, you know? So and then as I got older, of course, you get to different circles and whatnot. And I do remember this one lady at our church she always had foster kids. And there was something about those kids that just drew my heart. And, and I spent a lot of time with that family. I spent a lot of time with her. She and I were friends, and she was older than I am. She is older than I am, but her girls and her children. And what's so interesting is that there's been a couple of foster kids who's come through the church who I have had in our home at foster. They don't always know the connection that I know. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking, I know your mama.
Right.
She used to sit by me all the time in church.
How do you handle that? How do you handle
that's the thing. It's really because you don't want to expose too much, right?
Right.
But in one case, it helped me understand the child a little bit better because I remember her mom when she was the child's age.
Right.
But so with James Matthew mentioned the why foster children, I think again it's again showing these children that yes, this may have happened to you. Yes, this uncle was horrible. Yes, this whatever. Your mom was got a lot of kids who mothers are on drugs and things like that. But every woman is not trying to hurt you. Every man is not trying to hurt you. And I think that's why foster children that's resonated with me so much, is because it goes back to that trusted adult. That is our language at JMC.
Yeah.
To where even when I employ people and I'm learning that somebody is getting to a place to where I'm like questioning their integrity, it's kind of like I'm having a problem with that, because if I'm starting to question your integrity, if you're going to kind of exaggerate about this, what else are you doing in front of these children or whatever like that? So that's the thing that they have to also understand as well, is that, that as people who are hired, you have to be trusted with what kids are saying to you, even if it means, thank you for sharing that, but I'm going to have to escalate that. That's still keeping them safe. So I can't imagine, I do have a child right now who is your story. Right now, this child is your story. Yeah, her parents are like, I talked to the stepdad, and the stepdad is kind of like the stepmom for you. Listen, you're gonna have to go. But I just can't. And then some of the things that these kids have shared that they've gone through is just
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
And I know that to run the kind of nonprofit that you have? There's a lot of rules and regulations by the state that you have to adhere to, but how much of what you do is just plain old Holy Ghost discernment?
Well, I started the company at it as a for-profit. So we just started doing our nonprofit side. We're starting to build that side of nonprofit, but it's more of it's an SPC, which is a social purpose corporation. And so it's kind of like this for-profit, nonprofit marriage.
Right.
That it has, but it's still, we're very much taxed. So we're moving into the nonprofit side. With that said, we have to, now, one of my managers, she is very good at kids. She will offer prayer because I do have Christian people who work for me too, and they will offer prayer. You know, if the child accepts this, of course, and that's really kind of what the state kind of allows. They don't want you to force it on the child, but you can offer it to them or have a space for them to worship or whatever it is that they're going to do, but allow them to do that. So we haven't had any issue with that because it's not anything that we force of Jesus, 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 Jesus. I think that James Matthew Commission itself, James Matthew, is a very good topic because it's a great conversation. Because a lot of times people would think that it's someone's name. And so when I tell them, no, those are books in the Bible, they're like, what? You know. So it's another way to witness. So even with the state, as long as we are given opportunity for kids to decline, you know, going to church. I've had kids come to church, you know, often. I've had children come to church. We either go get them or the staff will bring them and things like that. And then my staff is there and all that kind of stuff and things like that. So I think the biggest thing that probably can conflict with the church is more so like the LGBTQ community.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah. You talked about that a little bit in your pre-interview, and you know, I was asking you, how do you rectify what the scripture says with these children who might be confused about their sexuality, and so they come to you and they are part of the LGBTQ community, but in need of help, in need of the help that your agency provides. How do you balance that? How do you handle
know, at the end of the day, they're children and they belong to God. I mean, and this is the thing that bothers me in the church is that sometimes we want to exile that population when, you know, sin is sin at the end of the day. So, you know, when I was growing up, it seemed like there was a ranking of sins.
There still is.
You know, you know, fornication was like number one. You know, adultery was number two. No, excuse me. Homosexuality was number one. Fornication was number two. Adultery was number three. But nobody ever dealt with the bitter missionary in the corner, the one who had envy and jealousy, which is all still in the Bible.
Or the mean usher.
The mean usher. All of it is sin.
Right.
And so the word tells us that with loving kindness have I drawn thee.
Right.
So whether I agree or understand where a child's sexuality is or their exploration of their gender exploration and all that, because it can be very confusing for me as well as the children when we have a bio-born female identifying as a male.
Right.
It can be very confusing. And it could be challenging to keep that child even safe because the state will place them in my boys' home.
Right.
Thankfully, the way my staff is, we're very hawkish. So we're going to watch these kids and we'll have to have real conversations with them. We're like, okay, we respect the fact that you know, say your name is Johnny, but understand you still have female parts. So you have to, I need you to keep that in mind because what these boys see is female parts. Right. And I want to keep you safe and I want to keep them safe. Right. Because it always boils down to safety. So that's really what we do is that is without judgment. I've had kids that have had some very sexual behavior concerns. They may be very assaultive or very aggressive physically as well. And so at the end of the day, they need help. They're hurting. And if you can show that child love, the LGBTQ community or whatever, the impact that you make on that child.
Yeah.
is more important than anything. It's not I'm not sitting here having a discussion about what I believe and what the Bible says. That's not my place. But I certainly can show Jesus and God's love. Did he not love all of us? He loved he died for all of us, whether we accept him or not. He still died for all of us, knowing that many of us will reject him. So we don't force it on it. If it gets inappropriate,
right,
any conversation, heterosexuals as well,
right,
we talk about that. We say, hey, hold on. But we've had it where maybe a girl is, liking another girl. No romance here. Y'all can do that someplace else.
Yeah, and it seems like
ain't no hookups here, honey. No, that ain't happening. When y'all leave here, because this is the things you have to say. When you leave here, the two of you can freely communicate. But we're not having no hookups here.
Right.
That's not what we're doing. So
it seems like
just don't put it off on them. Yeah.
It seems like consistent messaging and very clearly communicated boundaries help with any situation that comes up in one of your emergency
100%.
Like you just have to be consistent with your message, and everybody has to be saying the same message. All the staff, upper management, everybody has to be communicating the same message.
It's so true.
Yeah. So I remember in our pre-interview, you talked about there was a child that was going to be placed in one of your what it's called an emergency placement home, right? So I think it was a boys' home, but there was something that wasn't sitting right with you, and so you denied that placement. What was that? Without going into too much detail.
Well, there are times, I'll generalize it. There are times when we get information from the department that as much as they can summarize. And so you have to ask questions and things like that. Because with these group homes, what you're trying to do is seeing how can this child remain safe? Can we help stabilize this child quickly? And stabilization is just if a child can stay, we have a runner, because we get a lot of runners who can stay put for 15, even 30 days. We have 60, right? So sometimes you may get a child that is like, I had a child who is a boy who more presents himself as a female, traditional female. And they had sent me the information of a child who had a problem with, he'd already had some allegations towards him when it came to sexual allegations towards a sibling, his sister. And so they didn't want him to be around younger kids or females. Now, although this boy was in the house, he still presented as a female. And so I was like, we don't want to, again, can we keep them safe? And this boy had already, that's who was with us, was trafficked, sexually and commercially trafficked. So it was like, no, let's not put that together. And so then you make the decision not to have it. And I don't like to turn kids away, but if it jeopardizes or the safety, not only the kids who are currently placed, but the child that they're trying to place and my staff, then it's like, And we've had a child is placed, and we still have to say this is not working out for us. We can't keep them safe.
Right. And I would imagine that the trafficking aspect adds a whole other layer of trauma that you have to try to help the child work through.
Yes. And if I can add, I learned kind of early, maybe the second year of us having the girls' house, before we just had the girls' house, how he has to go. So
hi, Pastor.
He's like, James Matthews, my baby. So he helps me out with it. But that sometimes the trafficking can happen right in foster care.
Oh.
Yeah. So for example, we had a young lady who, and at that time I would let cell phones be in the house. We had a young lady who her information had said she was an 8th grader. This is the crazy part. She was an 8th grader they knew she had a commercial sexual exploitive caseworker working with her to get her off the streets.
Mhm.
And so she had that working with her. They brought her back in. She had been on the run, drugs and all that kind of stuff. And she
Mhm.
came back into care. She called her
Mhm.
social worker, come back into care. They brought her to us. Well, while she was there, at that time, I had the girls could use their cell phone. A couple of the girls who had entrusted me and the staff
Mhm.
were sending us the screenshots of this girl saying, "Hey, I know somebody that can come pick us up, and you can go and do your own thing and make money."
So she was trying to recruit
Yeah.
other girls while she was in your home, your place
Yes.
home.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is where the Holy Ghost, thank God for the Holy Ghost, because
Right.
I prayed over these kids, and I see Mavis Turner's coming on here. She
Mhm.
prays over these kids. A lot of us are praying over these kids, praying over just the staff and all that.
Yeah.
And so Wisdom said, so the girl, she was able to let one girl run with her. She ran.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was so like heartbroken because I was like, that child had been with us. At that time, they would let kids kind of stay longer than 30 days. She'd been with us for a minute.
Mhm.
And I was like, what in the world? Well, then thank God for Thurston County Sheriff. They are amazing.
Mhm.
They were able to get the child. And I said, that one right there can't come back, but this one can. And the one that was trafficking. So when she came back, the girl that ran with her,
Mhm.
she was telling us about, basically, she was talking about, you can get in the game and blah, 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 yada, yada. An 8th grader was
Mm.
recruiting for her pimp.
That's that grooming, though.
That's that grooming. That's that put him out there. That's, nobody's going to love you like me. And I'm going to take care of you. I'm your daddy, your man, all this kind of stuff. We have to be vigilant as adults. We got to open our eyes and pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this stuff is happening. So thankfully, this child, she and I actually have Facebook friends, and she ended up doing well. She's 18 now, but it was scary. But this 8th grader had come in to recruit.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so many traumatic things that happen to children today that I never even heard of when I was a kid, even as a foster kid, even as a runaway.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that happens today that I didn't even think about doing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do it. And so
Right.
I think sometimes we forget that this is a completely different generation of children who
Mm-hmm.
were raised with social media, on the internet, telephones, and all of this stuff. And it's so easy to get sucked into trafficking and these other things that happen because people have more access to you, even though you're just a child.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents are not being hawkish, like you said, you and your staff are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not really monitoring your phone and what you're doing on your phone. It's very easy
Yes.
for a stranger to contact you through social media.
And you're
And
talking about,
you.
yes. And you're talking about a vulnerable youth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're
Right.
talking about a youth who already is feeling, you said it earlier about yourself. All
Mm-hmm.
these people are controlling your life.
Right. Right.
And so that's the thing with these kids. They got all these people, they don't have a voice a lot of time. We try to do a voice. That's a big thing the state is really on right now,
Mm-hmm.
is really making sure that's part of wraparound and services is that
Mm-hmm.
the wraparound approach model is that you give the child a voice and a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So they can feel like they have some type of control of what's going on. Kids won't take showers, and we think, oh my God, my God, you need to take a shower. But
Mm-hmm.
it's part of their trying to control something in their lives.
Right. Right. Yeah. That makes sense. And most abuse victims have that mindset where I couldn't control the person who was abusing me. So at least I can control what I do with my own body. And if I don't want to take a shower, I'm not taking a shower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of people would try and force the child to take a shower because you feel like, okay, that's just the normal thing that a child does. But you have to understand the psyche of an abused child.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in order to understand it, you've got to study it and be trained in what to look for and the little nuanced things that happen in their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't respond in a way that makes the child feel even more abused and mishandled.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's why I said how much of what you do is just discernment. Like you just feel in your spirit, okay, something is not right.
A lot of it is discernment. I mean, you learn these things, my plan is to get my master's in social work so I can understand these kids more, because they are getting more challenging in the behaviors that they just that they give off. And so a lot of it is discernment, at the end of the day. And it's, just gone are the days of because I said so.
Right.
That's how I was raised. And these kids are like, so what?
Oh, what?
But if you can show that you're listening,
Right.
that's the biggest thing. And it's interesting because my dad was a high school teacher, and he retired from high school. And that mantle of the saints' children, because the saints are having a hard time raising their teenagers.
Yeah.
And God is just really starting to arm me with information and to help the parents, and to say, you got to hear differently. You got to listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they're saying and ask questions, have conversation, because these kids can speak for themselves. I get kids, a lot of our kids know their triggers. And that's that trauma-informed approach that you're talking about.
Right.
If a person is yelling, boom, trigger.
Right.
If this happens, blah, 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 trigger. I've had kids who another child's personality matched their sister that was abusive or just a bully to them that they don't live with anymore. And now they know that this is not my sister, but their actions remind me so much of it. And I haven't worked through this that it just,
yeah,
I can't take it. And we as adults, that can happen to us as well, right? If
right.
we're not doing the work. But these kids, they really don't know. And then they're teenagers, because I love the teenagers. And teenagers already are wacko. You know what I mean? They neurologically don't have it in them to they're still developing. Your brain is just developing.
Right.
So now you have a a brain that has now experienced trauma, and sometimes it just stops. Like wherever that mind was, I'll get a 16-year-old who can act out like an 8-year-old. And then you find out, at 8 years old is when dad left after he beat up mom.
So they get stuck there.
They get stuck
emotionally.
Yeah, it's like this pause that happens. And so
right.
it's fascinating the more I learned about it, that it's not just behavior, it's neurological. So this is why the Spirit of God is so important in this work, because now you can try to understand and discern. So you can say, okay, Lord, how do I handle it? Anytime I'm called to one of the house, because I'm typically the crisis response at this point. And I have a child who was just escalated for the 10th time, whatever. And my staff need support. I'm praying on the way. Okay, Lord, how do you want me to handle this? Am I coming in with fire? Am I coming in with gentleness and quiet? How am I doing it? And I've done all of it.
So what would require you to come in with fire? What would that look like?
I had this young lady who came in the door on 10. And the 10 is, and we're pretty, we don't just kick children out, right? But this child had gotten extremely disrespectful to staff, and just each day they began they came on a Wednesday. By the time Sunday had come, we were done. We had it. And so
one thing she was doing, what was she doing?
Well, she had started bullying. There was another girl that was there, was really chill. Nobody was messing with her. And she had kind of, because they'll start, wolf pack, right? So she and another child started bullying this girl. She started cussing out the staff and just being very disrespectful towards staff. If lights out at a certain time, they're running amok and all this kind of stuff. And she was the ringleader. Another girl was kind of falling behind her. She was the ringleader, and they just kind of formed this pack based on her. And so they would just be disrespectful. Our house is not hard. Clean up yours after yourself. Make your bed up when you get up in the morning. Medications, whatever. I don't want to do this. I want to blah, blah, blah. I want my cell phone, blah, 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 blah. So it's just different things like that. And then she had even pushed one of the one she was bullying, snatched her backpack and all this kind of stuff. And, staff will think of different ways that they can try to get everybody calm, separate and all that kind of stuff. But she just was she kept at it with that. So I came in and it was fire. Trust me. And so first of all, and this is after the manager was there, as well as happens to be my daughter, and one of my key people,
Mhm.
the lead of our swing ship,
Mhm.
and they were just here. And they usually can kind of bring kids down, de-escalate, and control the house. But it
Mhm.
was just this girl had just had it, and she would do a lot of screaming fits. She would just to
Mm.
where that trigger. Then now here we go. Here we're now in the safety has been compromised.
Right. Right.
Emotional safety is now compromised because you're screaming and hollering, you're being disrespectful to staff, you're stumping up and down the stairs,
Mhm.
you're bullying this child has now disrupted the other 3 or 4 girls who are there, right? And the 3 girls in this sense, the other 3 girls that are there. And so when I got there, it was 3. And let me tell you, sometimes the ones don't look like us, they have an image of what we are,
Mm.
how we behave. And
Mhm.
sometimes I let them have it. I let them go. You think I'm a deer? I'm gonna show you Medea.
You gonna
And
find out.
so I came in the door and they had the bedroom door blocked. Because I said, somebody open the door. I said, call 911 because I'm not about to sit up here trying to get up in my own bedroom. And then one of the girls opened it, and then I came through and I just sat on the bed and I said, which one is who? You. Get to packing now. Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it doesn't matter who I am.
Mm.
All I know is it's time for you to pack it up. And so she kept
Oh.
all this yelling and all this stuff. And she was trying to, and I said, that's good. I don't see you moving. Let's get it moving. And so what happened was the one girl left out the room.
Mhm.
The other girl just kind of like, wow, she was shocked that I was coming in like that.
Mhm.
That one looked like me.
Mm.
And so she then started going after the other girl because the girl's yelling and cussing at me. Bro, don't talk to her that way. Blah, 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 blah. And so it was a big old thing. And so I did. It doesn't happen often, but we have to bring that child she had to leave that night.
Mhm.
And I said, when I get back, I'm coming to get you. Well, she ended up staying one more night because she had calmed down.
Mhm.
But the other young lady, she broke. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I was like talking to the manager and the lead. And I said, well, what do you guys think about just giving her another chance, for another day or two? And they were like, she's going to start back up.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, not just because I do respect my staff a lot with most times with
Which
their
is important.
Huh? Oh, absolutely. They're in it.
Yeah.
They're in it day by day by day. So a lot of times sometimes their information will inform me, my decision, because I'm the one that decides if a child comes or goes. But sometimes it is their decision. So in this case, and so that's a part of not keeping a child safe. It's not just physically, but it's emotionally.
I was going to ask you, say more about emotional safety, because most of us, we know what physical safety is, but we may not know, we may have never heard that term, emotional safety. So say more about that.
For me, it's, these kids, every last one of these kids are out of placement, right? They don't want to be there. They would rather be with their parent or with someone that they want to be with, regardless of the situation. If mom is on drugs, they'd rather be with mom.
Yeah, because that's mom. It doesn't matter that she's on drugs.
Right. It doesn't matter. So if you're coming out of an unsafe environment into what should be a safe environment, we know that, okay, the place is clean. You got a bed, you got food, you got people that care. That starts helping your emotional safety to where I can feel like I can sleep tonight.
Right.
Yeah. I may need a light, or I may need and they've decorated nice to where just kind of a part where they have the LED lights and stuff. I may need music, but I feel safe. I can sleep.
Right.
Emotionally.
Right.
Now I'm getting disrupted. A lot of times it's because girls being girls, boys being boys, definitely girls. My girls' house, definitely. The girls are now being catty and they're being bullying and she just, I don't like her and she doesn't like me, blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff, okay. But when you start going below the belt, when you start saying something nasty towards the person, you're bullying them and just antagonizing, and now you're being the bully in the house. Now emotional safety is gone out the window. because now this child doesn't feel safe. Like and then sometimes they're like, staff is not helping me. And now who's protecting you?
Right. Right. And it can throw the whole house out of balance.
It throws the whole house out. And so that's what I mean by emotional safety, to where they can at least come in there. Yeah, they may be a cracked light on, because a lot of, if there's abuse that's going to happen, particularly sexual abuse, is going to be in the bathroom or bedroom, right? So sometimes the kids can't sleep.
Right.
So we get creative. We'll let them come. Okay, well, why don't you just come talk to staff for a little bit? Because emotionally, I'm having all this stuff. I'm in this safe place. Now my mind is racing, but at the same time resting. And so I can't really rest until I settle my mind. You know what I mean? So now I need to sit and talk with staff for a little bit. And after I talk to them, just get out and let staff listen. Then I can calm down and I can go have a peaceful rest. That's part of emotional safety. And whenever that is being jeopardized, and a lot of times it's because of the other kids, then that's when I have to make a decision. This girl said to me the other day, we were in a meeting. She said, I'm going to do what I need to do to get out of here and get myself kicked out. And she said this with, her social worker and the Department of Children, Youth, and Family representatives on there. And I said, let me just make this very clear. This is what I tell kids. I don't kick kids out. I don't do that. Your choice causes me to make a decision.
Right.
So this is all on you.
That's good.
You want to stay here? You know what you need to do. And again, we're not hard.
Right.
We're not going to have the freedoms, because we already see that you're inappropriate with cell phone. They've already told us that. So you think we're going to let you just have your cell phone when you want? No, ma'am, not happening. No, sir, not happening.
So what are some
it's crazy.
What are you normally seeing in the boys' home?
A lot of times what's happening with the boys, it's more like, and this is all anecdotal, right? Based on observation, is that the girls, are catty and things like that. Boys, when they get upset, they usually don't always go after each other, but they will get angry and it's physical. So like I had to get a punching bag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they may hit a wall. Like we had to repair walls. They may yell it out, cuss out, blah, 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 blah. So they exhibit a lot of their frustration, maybe more externally, in the sense of physically, boom, they may yell it out, or, they may try to wrestle or something like that. We don't allow touching, like you don't touch.
Right.
And so that's the difference that I kind of see. When the boys, as well as the girls, the boys can attach pretty good. Which is nice, because sometimes you think the boys are a little hard, but I have, there's a couple of guys that are really good. And when they see these guys, they just really, a lot of these boys will connect with these guys. And then again, Mavis Turner, who's our program manager there, she's like grandma, that grandmother. And a lot of kids just adopt her as that. She's just really gifted with children, especially the difficult, more challenging ones. And so that's what we see a lot of times with the boys. They're just more aggressive and they want to man up, smell their britches, like the old people would say, smell themselves.
Right.
Girls are just a lot of and just like, well, you shut up. You just want to sometimes just say, listen, go in your corner and have some me time,
Yeah. So how many emergency placement homes do you have?
We have 2 that has 5 beds each. And we used to have 3. We had younger kids, but it didn't really have the need that it has. But we are opening, so that has now become my my child placement agency office as of recent, just this month.
Okay.
And so we were going to do extended foster care, and so I will, but I'm going to wait to do that a little bit later. And so what we're doing right now, though, my hope is that, matter of fact, I'm going to turn all this in tomorrow morning, is our second iteration for our behavioral rehabilitation services home, which is still 5 boys who are still higher needs in their behaviors and things like that. So I'm hoping that I'll have my first child next month. And so that's why part of that fundraising is things that we may need in the house, furnishing a bedroom, things like that. We're really excited because we get those behaviors anyway, but now we have an opportunity to really be more intense with those kids, and because they'll stay longer with us. So there's some freedoms, but at the end of the day, we really become their parent.
Right. Yeah, you
In
do.
that case, we really will become their parent, if you will. And so, but also still working with their parents as well. So if the parent is still a safe option for them and a part of the plan, then we work all together. The child will get a team of people who will work to try to, minimize some disturbing behaviors and try to see they can graduate out with some good tools. So that's the goal, is to do that.
What's the name of the fundraiser?
So the fundraiser is just right now, it's all around just the five-year celebration.
Okay.
I don't really have a theme because we have 4 different areas we focus on. One is, opening up the BRS home. Just financially, we could always use support financially. We also have, we're going to do more formal where there's videos, things like that. So we'll make sure we tag with you, Sandy. You always come on my little trade table talk, so I appreciate that.
I do. So if somebody wants to donate to the fundraiser, they can go to jmckids.com.
I don't have it as a donate button. I would probably say the fosters at JMC Kids or admin. They can contact me and we'll have all that set up. But the donations could be like somebody is already committed to making sure we have clean underwear for the kids. Things like that. Yeah, it doesn't. It could be the child. That would be like child needs. Bras, new bras and panties and underwear, socks. A lot of times these kids, just like kids come in with very little or if anything. And so we want to make sure that they're good. So that's part of the fundraisers, as well as monetary donations always go back. And then, I'm like, maybe somebody wants to give us a van because the new house needs a van, or maybe somebody wants to give us money that we'll put towards the van, things like that. So we've done good work. We've done a lot in these last 5 years. We have the 2 emergency placement homes. I have the BRS home that's happening. We also have a child placing agency where we do recruit and license foster care and place children in foster care, with homes. I'm really praying about, I'm thanking God for my submittal for a request for proposal to really expand on what we're already doing, that Department of Commerce is doing and has offered. And so our ultimate goal is our church owns property out in Yelm. That's where we are leasing the house where the girls' house is. We'll be moving out of that home for a little bit and then build a village, JMC Village.
Wow.
And think about
village.
Yeah, that's our ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Think about Habitat for Humanity.
Right.
So different, it's a community, but it's different little houses and all this kind of stuff that are cohesive, but yet different in sizes. And so each program will be, there's such a need out there, y'all. Oh my God.
Do we even have any idea of the need, Tralayne? Do we really even know the scope and the magnitude of the need for foster care parents?
I have the stats and I don't have them in front of me, but what I do know is the good thing is that the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, they've done a good job of really putting children with relatives. And so relatives, if they're getting a relative, like for example, we have a grandmother whose grandson was a ward of the state. We got her license as a foster parent, and she would have had her child regardless. But what that does is just gives her resources, right, for his child. And so they've done a good job of pushing like what they call a kinship care and relative care. So that's been really good. The challenge is everybody who fosters wants the little younger child,
and not the older ones. Yeah.
No, those kids, and especially if the parents are, because the goal is really not to have the child come into foster care. So like the Family First Preservation Act, if they can prevent the child from even coming to foster care, put some counseling around the family or help mom get a job, help mom get clean or dad get clean. If they can keep the child out of foster care or even placed in the state's care for, a period of time, 30, 45 days while mom and dad stabilizes, then that's the best thing to do, or they find a relative, That's really what their goal is. But if the child comes into foster care, the first thing is reunification. But that still means how do we reunify this child with their parents if that's a viable option. If not, relatives, bio relatives. And
Right.
that could take a long time. You know,
Yeah.
we've had it to where the child's been in care for 8, 9 years and just
Right.
found out, the dad just found out, oh, I got a kid.
Mm.
Now he's like, I'm going to get my kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if these things can happen. So, but it's the teenagers who always need care.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the teenagers, a lot of times, the ones we're dealing with, they're hard to place.
And so do they just age out usually? Yeah.
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 And they
Oh,
don't always age out ready. I mean, what
right.
18-year-old is, but now you're talking about a child's been in foster care. We had an 18-year-old, she just made 18 in December. She was in our home that we
Mm-hmm.
used and that we transitioned over.
Mm-hmm.
And I concern myself for her because she's 18 and I don't know how she's going to do as a young adult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my good friend Tanya Miller is in the chat, and I believe she has a
Yes.
master's in social work. And
Yes.
she brought up a great point. Let me see. Let me find her comment. She said, COVID-19 does not help these behaviors. It is definitely worse for these kids. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. I would say that between our boys and girls, and we've cared for hundreds of kids, literally, because
Mm-hmm.
they stay with us up to 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that every child that has come into, and I don't have the actual numbers, but I could say that every girl that comes into our home, all of them have anxiety and or depression.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they kind of work together, they're sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the boys, all the boys usually anxious
Mm-hmm.
and ADHD along with ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
another code kind of diagnosis, whatever.
Right.
And it's hurt a lot of these kids that relative care is the push now.
Mm-hmm.
It really has hurt a lot of these kids. And so now you got to deal with these kids in a different level of anxiety, depression. But we've learned keeping them busy, pro-social activities helps, and it's not just letting them do it by themselves, but if you sit down and play cards with those kids,
Mm-hmm.
you can get a lot out of kids.
Mm-hmm.
You're cooking together.
Mm-hmm.
You make a drive, or you're doing some type of activity, some type of pro-social activity that helps again with the emotional stability, emotional safety.
Mm-hmm.
That builds the trust with the adult.
Yeah.
That
So I work for the Department of Social and Health Services. And I was talking to a grandmother the other day. She's 70 years old and she's raising her 3 grandchildren. I think the youngest one was 10 and then 13 and 15, I think. And she was saying to me, sometimes I think I should have just let them go to foster care. This is so hard. And I'm tired. And they weren't taught to respect their elders. And these are my daughter's children. So I'm having to retrain them and raise them all over again because they didn't get the home training that they needed. And it's so hard for me. And she said she found out after she took them, when the state came and said, your grandkids are going to go into foster care. Do you want them? She said she found out after she took them that she should have let them go into the system first and then become a foster parent, and then have them placed with her, because like you said, she would have had access to more resources. She done
we could like, I don't know, my any of the companies, any child placement agency, she could still get licensed.
I wonder if she knows that. She's working with the DCYF.
That's good. They can still license her. And if I were her, I would push that because, depending on what the children have gone through and what they've seen, they're definitely at that age where they're probably going to need some type of therapy or like the WISE, the wraparound intensive, care services and things like that, WRAP services that, they're going to probably need that. So she could definitely get, because the lady that how I met this grandmother was, we do McKinney-Vento transporting. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but basically McKinney-Vento, for those that don't know, is that one of the things of that legislation is trying to keep children who are either experiencing homelessness or in foster care in their school. So like we get a lot of times we get kids who are placed out of their district. They go to school in Tacoma, but they're living in Lacey.
Mhm.
So McKinney-Vento allows for them to have transportation back and forth. So we do that for a school district here, and we hope to expand that. So I met this lady because her child was going, her grandson was going to the school, and so we got to talking. And I said, we can license you. Just gotten him in September, and they finally, the state's kind of slow sometimes, but she finally got it, and even that stipend, it helps. She's 67. She's going to raise her grandson regardless.
Right.
But I mean, it doesn't pay everything, but man, it can help.
Help though, and when you got more than one that you're raising, that stipend comes in handy.
It does. So yeah, definitely. I hope she continues. The lady you're talking about continues.
Yeah, she's got a good social worker that she's working with. So
awesome. That's
she'll
great.
get all the information that she needs. We are running out of time, but before we go, I saw something on your website that I wanted to share with the audience tonight because I think it's so important, and it is the warning signs to look for in a child that you suspect might be either being neglected or being abused. And let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. I want you to go through these because most people don't know what to look for. You might think that the child is acting up or acting out or being disobedient or being defiant, and it's really something else. So let's talk about what each of these look like. So we're going to start with neglect. Can you?
Yes. So common signs that may indicate shows a sudden change in behavior, has not received help for a physical or medical problem, has learning problems that is not because of psychological issue, always watchful, expecting the bad to happen, lack adult supervision, overly compliant and withdrawn, compliant and withdrawn, comes to school early, stays later, does not want to go home. One thing our clinician mentor has told us, what we are seeing in behavior is a symptom of something else driving that behavior.
Right.
So when a child is all of a sudden doing well in school, and now they're starting to slip off in not just because it could be several things, not just they're failing because they, not doing well, they don't like the teacher or stuff like that. But you're getting noticing that they're skipping school. Or when they get home, they're quiet. They're not their peppy self, or they don't want to go to school. They have a hard time getting up to go to school. And I'm talking about, of course, school-age children. But what used to bother them doesn't bother them. And then they get around a certain person and like, I don't want to be. Don't take it lightly.
Right.
We were taught stranger danger, but we've learned abuse is not always strangers.
It's usually not. Yeah, it's usually not.
People, it's what? Trusted adults. So that child could be hungry, right? And maybe, and again, with no judgment now, because maybe the child is hungry because maybe mom and dad lost their job.
Right.
And they don't have food to eat. And this is why the Matthew part of James Matthew. So now I learned that this child is hungry. Like they're always like, Johnny, I noticed you don't have lunch, or you look like you're famished when you come here and eat. Well, my mama doesn't feed. We don't have food, or we only have. Now that's a warning sign as an adult. Okay, wait a minute. Let me find out what's going on. So now I can't talk about all the stuff going on until I say, okay, Johnny, let me call your mom and see if you're hungry. And then I find out from mom, yeah, my husband lost his job, or this is what's going on, and we just don't have the food. Well, now I can feed you because when I was hungry, you fed me.
Yeah.
And that's what the Matthew part, meeting the needs of the child. So really paying attention. And I think there's a lot in that. Not assuming that the child is being lazy, or
and
the
that's
child.
Where we mess up. We make assumptions instead of
if your child is always in the dark, like depression, like Tanya was saying, depression is real for these kids.
Yeah.
Anxiety is real for them. You have to say, okay, let's breathe. You can see them physically getting a little anxious. You could see it. There's antecedents that kids would do. We as adults too, they may pace back and forth. They may shut down. They may do. I remember this young lady, she would always kind of do this with her. And it was like, okay, what's going on? There's always a warning before somebody just loses it. There's always something. Or if you've seen a child who is they're not eating as much, they're eating a whole lot. They become obsessed with something. There's so much we have to just pay attention to the neglect. And again, without judgment, let's see what we can do to meet the need. Maybe dad is abusing the child. Maybe auntie is, maybe, this boyfriend, this cousin, or is coming over and sexually abusing.
That's the next one I'm going to go to.
Yeah.
Okay, that's neglect.
That's neglect, yeah.
Physical. Let's go to physical abuse first.
So unexplained burns, bites, bruises, broken bones, or black eyes, fading bruises, or other marks noticeable after an absence from school. Scared of their parents and cries when it's time to go home. Shrinks when an adult approaches, reports injury by a parent or another adult caregiver. Again, we're seeing this. We have eyes on in our churches. We have eyes on in the schools. We have eyes on, if you're just out in the community, you just kind of notice that this child, and it could be, oh, what happened? Oh, blah, blah, him and haw. Because if it's the parent doing it or an adult that they care about, they're going to protect the adult.
Right. Yeah.
They're going to protect the adult.
Because they don't want to be taken away from their mom or their dad.
They don't want to be taken away. They don't want mom and dad in trouble. Maybe mom and dad has even said, if you tell them you're going to be taken away and all this kind of stuff. And they're being physically abused. And again, coming from the lens of maybe mom and dad need help.
Right.
Parenting.
So is it your philosophy to not always jump to ripping the child out of the home, but what parents need to help them first?
Yeah. Our job we're mandated reporters, right? I think you are as well, right? So we have to report any suspicion. And I know that of child neglect or child abuse. And so I know that a lot of times they'll ask questions, they being the Department of Children, Youth, and Family, where they will ask questions to kind of see if the child was being supervised. We had an incident where a boy had gone to the bathroom, he came back out, he was bleeding. And so it was an intake on us because of the fact that he was bleeding. And so we had to explain, like, we were watching him because he was already kind of escalated. We watched him. I got to go to the bathroom. Well, we can't follow him in the bathroom.
Right.
Don't know where he got the thing that sharpened him. Sometimes they're walking along, they pick up stuff, right? It's hard to know. But there was a CPS investigation because were we supervising this child?
Right.
Or were we neglecting this child because the outward was the abuse of cutting himself to the point where we had to bring him to the hospital. So we have to be vigilant in all these things. We have to pay attention to our children and children around us. We just got to pay attention.
Let's go to sexual abuse.
Has difficulty walking or sitting, reports nightmares of bedwetting, experiences a sudden change in appetite, demonstrates bizarre, unusual sexual behavior, becomes pregnant or contracts a venereal disease. At the age of 14, reports sexual abuse by a parent or a caregiver. If you have a child, here's something I would add to it. If you have a child who is extremely interested in even what we may deem as soft porn, you catch them on their, and I'm not talking, you still want to be mindful. Now we know that, puberty happens and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But when it becomes something that they feel like they have to do all the time, and they're insinuating with the sexual innuendo, it's not, we don't want to just charge that off as puberty.
Right. Because it might be something else. It
might be something else. So one young man had come in, he was 12 years old, and he had just said some raunchy things to a couple of my female staff. And I was like, what's this about? What's going on here? And the discernment was this child has been exposed to either pornography or some type of sexual, whether he's been involved in it or he's seen something. Sure enough, after talking to him, he would see his mom have sex with men. She was an addict.
Mm-hmm.
And he from 5 years old, and he just kind of like, I see my mom, she'd have sex with men, the men be having sex with her, blah 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 blah. Well, that put an imprint in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's still sexual abuse
Mm-hmm.
in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
because this child was now overly sexualized
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to where he's just saying all these flippant stuff to his staff. Like, boy, little boy. My staff was like, little boy.
Right.
Being graphic about it. And I had another boy who he was gay,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like coming hard on this other child, like writing things and stuff. And I said, okay, whose handwriting is this? Very explicit stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that because he was gay that this is what was happening,
Right.
but it was just a little bit too much.
Right.
Beyond just boys finding out they have, a penis or something like that, But it was kind of like he was being very graphic, and I said, what is that? And he was sexually harassing this kid to where I made him do a whole report on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have read and studied, and it can happen where a child that's been sexually abused can then turn into a predator.
Yeah.
It's common.
It's just little, it could be little things. It could be, one child this wasn't a child in foster care, but one of the children at the church was tickling another child. And I said,
yeah.
Because they were tickling, not like here, like, on the head, they were going low. And I said, no, don't do that.
Right. Right.
Things like that can make a child feel uncomfortable and inappropriate. We as adults, we should know better. We have to pay attention to our kids.
Yeah.
Be curious. We got to make a big stink about it, right? Be curious.
Just correct them.
Just correct them and just say, hey, different things. Because sometimes it is just discovery and things are happening into their bodies and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes another child is preying on. I just told you that the 15-year-old, they told us not to have him with younger children.
Right.
Because I have seen a 12-year-old registered sex offender come across my thing.
Ooh, Lord. And this is what I admire about you, Tralayne. You could have placed him anyway, because a lot of foster parents do what they do for the money. But it was more important to you to keep him safe and keep the children that were already in the home, in the placement home, safe.
Exactly.
And that's why you made the decision not to accept him into the placement home.
Absolutely. It's all about the safety. And that's what we try to do, is just keep the kids safe. We love what we do, but that's the thing. And it's our job as adults. These are our babies.
Yeah.
These are our babies, and I wish I had picked this up 10 years ago.
Yeah. You're here now, and the work that you're doing is, it's important. It's needed. I pray God's blessings over every single thing that you touch, that He will enlarge and expand what you're already doing.
Thank you.
If anybody who's watching right now wants to know how they can get involved with JMC, go send an email to admin@jmckids.com or foster@jmckids.com to get more information. If you want to make a donation, send an email to, it's on your screen right now, admin@jmckids.com. Help is needed. We want to help Tralayne and James Matthew Commission continue to do the work that they do, but on an even broader scope.
Yes.
That's what we want to do. And that's why I wanted to have you here tonight. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you so much.
I really do. I really admire you.
Likewise. Oh, appreciate that.
You're doing an awesome work for God.
Thank you. I feel privileged. I feel honored and privileged that He chose us to do this. Yeah.
And will you please, I didn't get to say it, but please thank Pastor Alex for being so candid with us tonight and sharing his story with us.
Absolutely. He, being a pastor, he's preaching. We have 2 services. So he did the 2, and then he was still praying. When he came in, he was praying for people. He came right on in. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing to uplift women, to showcase women. and just to empower, empower women to, even like you sharing, in times past about your divorce and everything like that, and how life doesn't stop. It can be even better, So I appreciate you can be healed, you can be whole, and you can move on. And I think that's such an important thing that women, we love hard a lot of times. Not to say the men don't, excuse me, we love hard and we forgive a lot. And then we end up scorn or bitter. But I see that you are truly, you've always had Sandy Best Life Owens as your kind of moniker, your Facebook name, but you are truly living it. And I see it. I see it just in your spirit and your continence. So thank you, sis, for just being beautiful, not only outward, but just in your spirit. You're just shining and just radiating even more so. I appreciate that about you.
God is blessing.
Yes.
No complaints whatsoever.
I love it. I
want to bring you back. We're going to bring you back because I want to talk a little bit more about the trafficking.
Yes.
I don't think people really understand how much of a hub the Seattle Tacoma area is for sex trafficking. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you when you come back. And I'm going to bring another expert on that really works in that arena.
Yeah, I love that.
You children from sex trafficking. So I want to talk about that too when you come.
I love that. Thank you.
And I'm gonna have you sing when you come back next time too.
Girl,
sing something. I don't care what it is. Sing. Girl. I don't know.
Jesus. I love to sing. I always say that I'm not the best vocalist because there's some amazing vocalists. We all know our friend Crystal Aiken, who's a Northwest person. And a lot of times people will ask me, how's your sister doing? Because we have a lot of the same mannerisms and stuff. And she's an amazing singer. I'm a huge fan of hers, actually. So I always feel a little pressure when somebody's like, oh God, I don't think because we have these same mannerisms, I'm like, I hope they don't expect me to sound like her.
No, you sound like Tralayne.
Thank you. Thank you. Takes one to know one. So
thank you so much, sis. I love you.
Love you too, sis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wait, let's go through the top. Let's go through the chat because I got people trying to talk to you. Let me make sure.
Absolutely.
Acknowledge them and honor them. Yeah, Robin said the stipend that you get as a foster parent comes in handy.
Yeah. Yes, Robin is a pro. She's adopted children and fostered. So yes, absolutely.
Tanya said, great job, Tralayne.
Thank you, Tanya. I didn't get a chance to say hi to her, but I saw her from a distance looking all fierce.
Yes, Tralayne is doing the Lord's work.
Thank you.
Oh, there's just so many wonderful comments in the chat.
Praise God. Thank you to everybody.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Yes. Support us though. JMCkids.com. Check us out.
Yes.
I'm very transparent. My staff knows we're very transparent. We love what we do. And we are also hiring. We're hiring.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to work with kids, we're hiring for the transportation as well as for my BRS home and our Midland home. And so the boys, which are boys for the boys. So yeah. So please, if you just send me your resume and I'll send you on to the assistant who can help with that. Because anytime I get involved with that, it messes up.
So can they send their resume to admin@jmc.com?
Yes. And I'll respond and say, we got it. Let me connect you. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, good sister.
All right, dear. Have a good night. All right.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. All right. That is our show. Let me go through these comments because y'all was being interactive tonight. I love it. I love it. Oh, that was just such good information to have. I don't think most people realize what children go through. This young generation, what they go through right now. Part of it is because they're being exposed to so much through social media, and they're trying to emulate what they see online. And probably 90% of what they see online is not even real anyway. But they're trying to be like the people they see online. And when they're not able to do that, it causes all kinds of issues, anxiety, depression, you name it, cutting, all of it. And so to have an organization in the community that is solely focused on taking the most vulnerable population of children and making sure that they're safe if they have to leave their parents' home for whatever reason. Just because you have to be removed from your parents' home, that doesn't mean that you are um, just something that gets thrown to the wolves and nobody is going to care about what happens to you once you enter the foster care system. That does happen, but I'm happy to say with James Matthew Commission, they and Lady Tralayne said this to me in the pre-interview. She said the safety of the children drives what they do. I'm going to say that again. She said the safety of the children drives what they do at jmckids.com. They want to make sure that the children are safe when they're already out of the care of their parents. And we know kids slip through the cracks of the foster care system all the time, but just knowing that there's an agency out there that's being intentional about making sure that the children are safe, that gives me comfort. That makes me feel like, okay, how can I use my own life, my own platform, my own influence to amplify the work that James Matthew Commission is doing? And that's what I wanted to do tonight. That's why I had Lady Tralayne come on the show, because I wanted to amplify what she is doing with James Matthew Commission. So if you want to get involved, she has a couple of positions open. She needs some folks she needs to add to her transportation department and needs help with some other things. Send your resume to admin@jmckids.com. If you would like to make a donation to their upcoming fundraiser, again, send an email to admin@jmckids.com. Once again, I thank you all for joining me tonight. This was an excellent conversation, really great show, such an important topic. I appreciate your input in the chat. I love it when you guys get interactive with me and you're talking with the guests and you're talking with me. That lets me know that what we're talking about is reaching your heart. And I believe that what comes from the heart will always reach and touch the heart. And that's what's the most important thing for me. So, next month on Girl Talk Sunday, my guest, I can't tell you who it is. Sorry, y'all. I can't tell you who it is. But I can tell you that she is a Grammy Award-winning artist. And she has written songs for some of your favorite gospel and R&B and other genres, some of your favorite artists. And she's coming on the show because she has a testimony that is going to blow you out of the water. I'm here to tell you that being gifted does not mean that your life is going to be sunshine and rainbows. That's not what that means. Sometimes you got to go through the fire before you can come out and really appreciate your gifting and use it to the glory and honor of God. And her testimony is amazing. So you do not want to miss next month's episode of Girl Talk Sunday, May 21st, 2023, 6:00 p.m. live right here on Facebook and Best Life TV YouTube. My guest is, I can't wait to tell y'all who it is. Information about who she is will go up. Her flyer will go up on May 1st. So watch my Facebook page, watch my Instagram. Matter of fact, I forgot to tell y'all how to follow me on Instagram, because I have an Instagram now. And I forgot to tell you that you can follow me. You can follow me on Instagram at Girl Talk Sunday with Sandy. Get over there. Follow me. I'm trying to build up my followers over there. I normally use my Best Life merch Instagram, but I thought it was a good idea to go ahead and create one for Girl Talk Sunday. So you can follow me at Girl Talk Sunday with Sandy. And if you would like to sow into this ministry, you can do that via Cash App at $Girl Talk Sunday. I appreciate whatever you do for us. Again, thank you for being with me tonight. I love and appreciate you all. Can't wait to see you next month. Have a wonderful evening. Good night and God bless. Good night.